Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. The story we're following is that of the Libyan Prime Minister, Ali Zaitan, who before dawn was picked up by gunmen at his hotel. Reportedly, he told his guards not to try to stop them. He was sequestered for several hours, released by lunchtime. He's been tight-lipped, even though he's spoken to the press. He's unharmed, but he spoke to the press and has been tight-lipped so far as to who done it. We've been talking about who done it with former member of the Libyan National Transitional Council, Wahid Bourshan, France 24's Libya correspondent, who luckily for us happens to be in Paris, Marine Cazalis. Welcome back. Welcome back as well to Adel Riam of the French School for Higher Social Studies, EHESS. And from Dublin, his book hit the stands 1 month ago. It's called Soldier for a Summer, One Irishman's Part in Gaddafi's Downfall. Sam Najer, welcome back to the show. We're talking in part one about the myriad of different interest groups, and Sam Najer was mentioning it. I want to add one more name into this mix. When Gaddafi fell, one rebel leader made front page news, Abdel Hakim Belhaj. He was arrested in Afghanistan, part of an al-Qaeda affiliated group. Then he was in Afghanistan at the same time as that al-Qaeda suspect who was picked up this weekend, Abu Anas al-Libi, in the 1980s. Belhaj, who suddenly pops up as the military governor for Tripoli when Gaddafi falls. Belhaj, who stepped down from that post when elections were held in July of last year.
These celebrations come after a lot of sacrifices from all of the Libyans. We hope that this will end with building Libya in a way that guarantees the rights and aspirations of all Libyans.
All right, that statement from July 2012. Belhaj, who, by the way, spoke to, he's now the leader of a political party. It's called El Watan al-Libi. Wednesday, on France 24's Arabic language channel, denouncing last weekend's U.S. raid in a telephone interview with France 24's Arabic language channel. Sam Najer, what do you think about Abdelhakim Belhaj? Is he just another politician now?
Yes, well, I think he's stepped down from the military council. I think his appointment was generally, it took place at a time of serious commotion in the country at the time. You're talking about when Tripoli fell to Libya, to rebel hands. He was nominated by a few, and he took the post. Obviously, later we realized that, maybe he wasn't the right person for the position, and he stepped down himself. So I think, yes, he's taken the route of politics, which I don't know. Personally, I don't think... I think we have the main political parties there at the moment. To be honest with you,
neighboring Tunisia doesn't think he's changed his stripes. They accuse him of harboring those hardline Salafists who they blame for the killing of a prominent secular opposition leader.
Well, I don't actually know about that exactly, but what I will say as to what Will Crisp mentioned earlier on about this being something, the event of the kidnapping or of the arrest of Abu Anas al-Libi, I think, to be honest with you, it's not just the Salafis or the hardliners that are feeling this. I think a lot of Libyans feel that, okay, even if this person was involved in such crimes or affiliated to Al-Qaeda, and most people would not be attracted to any such thing, still they think that the way he was taken and brought away in a raid like that was detrimental to Libya's sovereignty. Who will it be next? When will it be next? For what reason? For what agenda? And so although I think that the raid was for a certain cause, I still think it wasn't dealt with properly at all, and we're seeing the repercussions now with the government. It did, in a sense, weaken the government even more than it was already.
Marine Cazalis, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Sam Najer on that point. I think you don't have to be a Libyan extremist to be against the U.S. raid against Anas al-Libi. I mean, a lot of Libyans actually felt that even though this man was dangerous and was wanted, I mean, there was no reason that the U.S. raid seized him and brought him to sea to question him. And even those who actually agree with this U.S. raid and were happy that he got caught, basically are very worried of the consequences that it could have, because then, as a local journalist told me a few days ago, it could actually give a green light to all other extreme groups to actually attack foreign targets, and it gives them a really good justification.
Yes. Wahid Bourshan, your thoughts on this? Do you agree, by the way, with Sam Najer, who feels as though Abdelhakim Belhaj is out of anything to do with military affairs?
On the first issue, yes, I agree with the sentiment that I think it was a mistake the way Abu Anas al-Libi was abducted. I think that it shows that United States may, for self-interest or whatever reason, can go to extreme measures to achieve its goals. I think I would have been more happier for the United States to support the legitimacy and the sovereignty of the state of Libya and work through the system in order to do this. As a matter of fact, I think they have exhibited an example of extreme measures that the extremists might use. They said, well, the United States have done it, we could do other things too.
But is that realistic? Is that realistic, though, Wahid Bourshan? And when you know that it's a country, you were saying yourself very eloquently in part one of our discussion that Libyan state is weak. They're not going to take on. They're not going to take on this man al-Libi directly at this particular point. They're not going to pick a fight with him. So, would it be realistic to just put your faith in the Libyan judiciary system?
Well, on the other side, the expediency also is not a good thing, especially under the circumstances. You cannot have, just because to achieve probably a right objective or the right reasoning, you could go through these extreme measures. Yes, I mean, another way, what would that serve? Would that serve the American interests in the region? Would that serve the, that makes America more secure to do this? I would have waited. I would have gone through the process. President Obama, he is a lawyer and he comes from the legal system. He should understand this apparatus needs to be supported. If it's weakened, there's no legitimacy to it. And so no, I disagree. The fact that this the way they've done it, and I think they've done it on the cheap, probably bribed certain Libyans or militia group to achieve their goal. So what difference would that make? I mean, so they use militia to achieve their goal. Would somebody else do it to do it for the same reason? I don't think that's a very good example.
Sorry for interrupting. I completely agree with what just said right now. Here's the problem. We're talking about different groups, right? And the intervention of the United States and about the government. What's a government if not the legitimacy of power and the legacy of it? If these groups are stronger and they do not represent a broad base, which are the Libyans, we're talking about the Libyan people. So how would the Libyan people be a nation if not through their government? So,
but how do you feel if you're the United States and you know, for instance, that the militia leader who Ahmed Abu Katawa, who led the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi that killed the ambassador,
yes, the names
is sitting in Benghazi.
Okay,
nobody's bothering him.
Okay, so I'll give you another example, a counter example. When Kennedy was shot, did that weaken the American government? I don't think so, because there is a continuity of a whole system. So now if you come back, for example, and you tell me that just because there is one terrorist being somewhere, that means that any other country could just decide for its own self-interest to go and attack, to go to extreme measures without going through the system, as it was just said right now, then you have a world of chaos that will fuel more the resentment against the United States that is applying a double standard. The United States wants a global law, for example, international law, yet it's the only country in the world whose Congress have signed a law saying that if a U.S. citizen is held in Holland, that that means that the United States have the right to go and invade this country.
All right,
I mean,
so
it's
respect other people's sovereignty.
Yes.
Getting back to Libyan affairs, Libya still in shock over last week's attack on a military checkpoint outside the capital. 16 uniformed men mowed down at point-blank range by gunmen who'd arrived in cars. Attacks against soldier and police picking up pace in the past weeks. Wahid Burshan, why are there more and more of these attacks targeting men in uniform, and who do you blame?
Well, this is to the point that we spoke of earlier, is that there's clearly different groups. It's in their self-interest and the way they see it at this point, a weak state, because none of them, they themselves on their own, are able to take over or influence the political apparatus. So they choose to knock down others or knock down any state systems or show of sovereignty or legitimacy, because the way they see it is counter to their view or their aspiration. For example, the ideologue, they would like to answer to Amir or to a certain group, or the old regime would like to bring up the old regimes, and none of them, or all their interest is to keep the status quo of a weak state until they gain power or they gain strength or organize or reorganize themselves in order to shape the political view of Libya.
And do you agree on that point? Do you agree on that point with the authorities in Tunisia, where you are right now, that there are Libyans, and most notably they name Abdelhakim Belhaj, who they believe are behind harboring those who've killed opposition leaders in Tunisia?
No, I disagree totally. I don't have the facts, but from analyzing the situation, and Mr. Abdelhakim, I think I've heard him twice, at least 2 or 3 times a day on all the radio stations, arguing the point. No, there's no such thing. I think there's something that needs to be understood about the religious quasi-relationships. Sometimes you see people talking to people and things like that. Doesn't mean that they are in the same group or plotting something, or there's a lot of misunderstanding.
The Tunisian Salafist leader, Abu Iyad, is reportedly inside of Libya right now.
Well, that could be the fact, and I don't know, I don't have the information, but the fact that he is in Libya, is he plotting something in Libya? Just the fact that he's in Libya? I'm sorry, maybe I think we're hypersensitive about individuals. I mean, when they walk, that means there's a conspiracy around them. I'm not suggesting otherwise. He could be, but at the same time, there's no proof that he is. I hear quite a bit in the Tunisian media here about what they're doing, what they're plotting. None of them is substantiated. None of them, it's a hearsay. It's an analytical viewpoint. And I think it's being politicized for the local benefits and the local politics here in Tunis. So the fact to say that they have a plot, Abdelhakim Belhaj plotting against the state of Tunis, at least I don't see it. I think he's too busy in Libya. He's busy in Libya and working on Libya, and I think I understand he's also active in Syria. Why would he be dealing with Tunis? It doesn't make any sense to me.
All right, another sign of Tripoli's authority issues in Ajabdia. The militia leader running what was called the Petroleum Defense Guards, falling out with central authorities over the issue of autonomy for the east. Ibrahim al-Jatran, who's shut the tap on Libya's 2 main oil terminals there. Copycat closures have since followed elsewhere, and Libya's oil production, Malik Yazadis, it's tanked. The production is gone way down the last couple of months. You've been to that region. What's it like there right now?
I've been to Ashdabia and I've met Ibrahim Jadran a few weeks ago. What's the situation for the oil production right now is basically cut into half. After the revolution, Libya recovered its oil production almost the same than before the revolution, meaning 1.5 million barrels per day. Now it's around 700,000, and just a few weeks ago it went down to 100,000 millions barrel per day. So the country right now is cut into two. You have the western part of Libya. The oil production has recovered, even though it remains fragile. The east is completely blocked. The groups in the east, the federalists, as you call, are very different groups from other militias or extremist groups. It's a totally different issue, really. Basically, what this group want is they want the autonomy for the eastern region, and they just found the oil is a very easy weapon for a political negotiation.
Another, the issue of who controls that oil is seems to be coming up more and more. We've been seeing some of your reactions as well. Here's one from Mawish saying Libya's prime minister freed following a kidnap, but the point has been made. There are reactions coming out of the West as well. Before we give them, just turn back the clock to September 2011. The French president and the British prime minister at the time were in Benghazi to celebrate the fall of Gaddafi. There was Nicolas Sarkozy in the company of David Cameron at the time. France's new president, François Hollande, reacting this Thursday with, quote, reinforced worry after the brief abduction of Prime Minister Zaitan. He said, France has always said it's willing to bring its aid and support when it comes to security, and more than ever, the international community shouldn't wait. Sam Najer, when you look at that reaction today by the French president, what do you have to say regarding how the French and the British have followed up after the fall of Gaddafi?
Well, I think it's only natural, to be honest with you. I think with every action comes a reaction, and with every extreme action comes an extreme reaction. And so we have an extreme action in what I would feel about the American arrest of Abu Anas, and this extreme reaction, which is not at all. It's far to, nothing. You know, the headlines that came out of Libya this morning were ones that I could never have foreseen. What I would like to say about what you were mentioning, some of the panelists were mentioning, were saying we're always mentioning the government and the militias, or the government and the armed groups. What has brought us to this step? Why is it was it not at the time you were mentioned there in 2011 when Sarkozy and Cameron and were all happy about the jubilation? Was the NTC and the fighters not in the same line as well? Were we not in the same group? What has brought us to the stage where we've come to the point where it's the government on one side and armed groups on the other? What has brought us to that point? And I think we have to seriously look at, yes, there are elements from the ex-regime still loyal to their ways that I think are causing havoc through the country's media, through the TV stations. That's why people are finding it so hard to believe two words in Libya anymore, because there's so much propaganda going out, so much biased stories, so much
but my
agendas.
question to you is, should Paris and London be staying out of it, or should they be jumping in and trying to help sort it out?
How do you mean by jumping in?
Well, jumping in terms of stepped up aid to help disarm, programs to buy back guns, this sort of thing.
Of course. Look, when the first time in Abdurrahim Keeb's government, for example, I'll give you, when I was there and they offered the revolutionaries 2,400 dinar and 4,000 dinar to each revolutionary who fought as a payment. Now, why did, for example, me as a normal person that's not part of any government, why did they not take that chance, see it as a chance to say, okay, to give you this money, we will take it in acceptance of, say, an AK Kalashnikov or an FN, or as an amnesty of some kind of arm that you own. Why are these a chance is not taken to disarm the country. If those kind of chances are not taken, well, then I feel that the government is not stepping up to the mark to do enough to cope with the dire situation, which is spiraling out worse and getting worse every month,
And is
every
it too
year.
late now? Is it, or is it still possible to make up lost time?
No, I'm very optimistic for Libya's future all the time, but I still think that a long time ago, steps could have been taken by the people that were in power. In the NTC, for example, I mean, when I mentioned earlier on 2 chief of staffs, I'm talking about, the chief of staff is the head of the army. When he comes out and resigns and says to the people, there's nothing I can do without a budget, what excuse can there be for the government for that? If certain militias are being armed by certain members of the government for their own agendas, yet the actual Libyan army is not being afforded its budget, well then therein lies the problem.
All right, so we have a comment on Twitter after this. No one will take the government seriously anymore. Waid Borshan, will Ali Zaitan continue to be the prime minister after this?
Well, I hope so myself, to be honest with you. I don't think we have a choice in a sense that he's not necessarily the best. But I would suggest for the moment, we need to keep it going as is. I think if I may add to that, I think Mr. Ali Zaidan, if he wants to really regain the initiative and try to do something about the country, is to really start working on architecting solutions. There's no off-the-shelf kind of a proposition. You've got parameters, you've got things on the ground, you've got resources. You need to think of a strategy that needs to be architected well, taking the international support. You mentioned what the international community and the Friends of Libya and its neighbors can do. They can do a lot. The key word here is support, not interferences, not weaken the legitimacy of the state, it's support. However, the international community having one particular issue. When Mr. Zaidan was in Europe and was in the States, was asking for support. And they're asking, fine, we'll help you. Can you do it? The international community does not have a serious interlocutor on the ground who can, whatever strategy they can do, that will be able to be implemented. So the key thing is that working from the ground up, working long term, we have a major issue that's coming down, with which is the timeline of the GNC and the Prime Minister. Obviously in February, they have to make a decision whether to extend the GNC timeline or go through re-election. These are key vacuums. And as a matter of fact, I would suggest what happened today was kind of repositioning themselves what's going to happen in a couple of months.
All right, a wake-up call there. Waid Borshan, I want to thank you very much for joining us from Tunis. I want to thank Sam Najjar for being with us from Dublin. Here in the studio, Marine Cazalis and Adel Riam. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Before we go on the France 24 debate, though, let's go say hello to James Creedon and some of the media reaction to this incredible story.
That's right, and I suppose one of the main media elements to this story, Francois, is this fake front page of Le Monde that has been circulating on Libyan and Arab-speaking social media, Twitter notably, for the last 2 days. Now, to the I suppose tuned-in eye, you'll notice straight away that the front page...
Because it's got a .fr.
Right. And a lowercase m for Monde. So I think anyone who's familiar with the newspaper and sees it regularly would straight away pick up that that's not the real deal. Now, what was the front page of this fake Le Monde saying? It was essentially linking Ali Zaidan, the kidnapped and now released Prime Minister, to the US raid where...
saying he was in the know.
Saying that he was in the know, and in fact that he had handed over Mr. al-Libi and another...
So do we know who's responsible for this?
No, that remains a mystery, but certainly if you look in any detail at the front page, you can see that it's fake. Not alone that, but take a look at how Zaidan is spelt. It's spelt Zidane, better known as the French footballer. Yes, so I think, but the thing is, as this was circulating on Arab-speaking social media, it could indeed have fooled a lot of people into believing that there was a connection, and a connection that had been verified by Le Monde between this raid and the Prime Minister. Now, a couple of other stories, Francois, that doing the rounds on social media today. Azerbaijan's election results, right?
Oh dear.
Essentially, this, in terms of things not being altogether authentic. I think there's a link here. Essentially, the results of that election were released 24 hours before the election even took place. Now, the official explanation is that they were testing the mobile app and that the results from the 2008 election leaked out, but actually the candidates were from the 2013 elections. So that doesn't altogether hold together. So there you go, Francois. We'll be looking at those stories and more later on, in particular, all of the buzz on social media about the 50th anniversary of the death of Edith Piaf. And as you pointed out on social media, I found a tweet by François Picard. Jean Cocteau passed away within 24 hours of Edith Piaf. So that's sort of being forgotten about, except on French, in fairness, French media are making that connection. But
two legends that left us 50 years ago today.
Absolutely.
Many thanks, James Creedon. I want to thank our panel. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.